Every 2 weeks since the beginning of January 2025, we put out a video in this series. This one is called Meals 17, and it goes through 2 weeks of things that I'm making with the ingredients in my house, and also gives you a sneak peek of the craziness that we call life. If you're just meeting me, my name is Amy Cross, and this is the Cross Legacy, where I teach you how to save money on groceries. For over 18 months now, it has just been my husband and I here at the house, and we have stuck to our grocery budget of $135 per person. So that's a grocery budget of $270 per month. And these videos and this series is a perfect example of showing you how I'm using those ingredients multiple different ways to make meals that are well balanced and healthy, and they are never boring. So if you're looking for new meal inspiration, make sure that you're hitting subscribe to the Cross Legacy, and we will help you stick to your grocery budget. So this video starts right in the middle of August, and it's been exactly 2 weeks since I went to the grocery store. So I love this second half of the month where I get to really showcase the produce items that are lasting the way that I say that they're going to last. And if you're just meeting me, you might not know that I teach produce tips all across the world and even had a TED Talk on it. So I go grocery shopping once a month, and I'm able to keep my produce fresh the entire month. So make sure that you're following along. We are going to have some special recipes that will be in this video, and also some special milestones in our life that are happening. We are going to start this video off with a Thai peanut sauce chicken wrap that actually came together in just a few minutes. I have the recipe for the sauce that we will link in the description so you can easily get it, but it just comes together with a few simple pantry items. And I just used some leftover cooked chicken that I had that I warmed up in a pan, and I added a little bit of that sauce to it. And while that was warming up, I started pulling out some of the prepped veggies I already had in the refrigerator. So things like peppers and onions I had ready to go, and I cut the carrot sticks down into julienne sizes. So normally I store those in the refrigerator in a glass container, and they stay freshy for an entire month. And then I just cut it down a little bit smaller for these wraps. And then we had crunchy lettuce that we were able to use, and I pulled a couple gyros out of the freezer so we could just have these as wraps. And it was totally well balanced, and it had been over 2 weeks since I went to the grocery store. This is also a great reminder when you're making chicken or making any kind of protein, if you can put a little bit aside and put it in the freezer, it's great to pull out for another meal. So instead of having to wait to cook chicken, I was able to repurpose some cooked chicken I already had. And also, if you're getting rotisserie chicken, this is a great way to use it up. The next day, I ended up taking out my Instapot and putting an entirely frozen chuck roast in my Instant Pot. And I added some carrots and onions and celery to this, and I cooked it for 90 minutes. And then I left the house for the day because we went to Grandma's house and we were working on cleaning it out. So once that Instapot ended up pressure cooking for 90 minutes, it just kept it in a slow cooker mode and kept it warm until we got back home later in the day. We have spent the last couple of weeks getting Grandma's house ready to sell, and we are going to be selling it soon. We've been going through 95 years of Grandma's memories and trying to decide which ones are the special ones that we want to keep and preserve for our family history, and which things are okay to let go. And this has been an emotional roller coaster doing all of this. At the same time, we are selling our house and getting ready to move. If you can see, it's looking kind of empty behind me compared to other videos. We are just days away from moving at this point. Now, Grandma loved a perfect stringy roast, and whenever I have made one in all of these years, I always called her to brag about it because it was just one thing that she taught me how to do way back being a young wife, and with the homemade gravy. So that always brings back special memories of her, and I love that I have these memories that I can share. Okay, this night I actually thought I messed up and made a mistake. I was talking to one of my kiddos on the telephone while I was actually doing one of my recipes that I looked up on the blog to remake, and I was making the Catalina dressing, but it seemed like I added too much oil and it wasn't mixing right, and I couldn't figure out what I did. And I just chalked it up to maybe while I was talking on the phone and not really paying 100% attention that I had mismeasured. Later, I realized that I forgot to blend it, and that emulsifies it, and that's what turns it into the dressing and not make it separate it and seem a little oily. But since I wanted to use what I had made, I ended up, instead of making taco salads, I used it as a marinade, used some of that leftover roast, and we ended up making fajitas, and that marinade was amazing. So it ended up working out as a win-win for the whole situation, but the recipe on the blog is correct. It just needs to go into the blender and emulsify it, and then it turns into a perfect creamy dressing. I will say, if I'm making it as the marinade again, I would still use the other ingredients and use less oil in it. So I wasn't wasting anything, but it was the best fajita marinade I think I've ever made. So we had that with peppers and onions on tortillas, and it was a quick and easy way to repurpose that roast that we had the night before. So if you've been following this series back to January, you will know that I was doing a no takeout challenge for months and months. And I might have told my husband and you guys that I was doing it to save money to buy a couch. It was actually, I was saving money to do this very special surprise for Mike. So the money that we would have normally spent going for takeout or eating in restaurants, I was kind of squirreling away into a special account so I could plan the surprise, because it was his 50th birthday. During the wintertime, I was able to book this and do it during the wintertime and get the winter rates, which were much cheaper than the summer rates. But I was able to rent a Lamborghini that Mike was able to drive across the state, and we ended up having a birthday party for him with our family over in Eastern Washington, and he was just blown away that I was able to pull off this surprise. He has always wanted to drive a Lamborghini, and the fact that we got to do this for a big road trip was pretty incredible. But it really was all of those months of not going out to eat and putting that money aside, because I was so determined to pull off the surprise for him. This really does prove, when you look for things that are on sale, that are special, and you have the determination to want to pull something off, that sometimes you can find that money in your budget. It just meant that we were able to have a lot of meals here at home, even during hard, stressful times, to be able to pull off this trip for him. And I'm still going to end up with a new couch at some point. The house that we're buying is actually in a much cheaper budget than what our house is now. So we will have some equity and some other flexibility that we will be able to use to be able to make some of those kind of purchases. But again, it was just amazing to let him drive a Lamborghini. We are back in town, and it was really hot in the house. I hadn't pulled anything out of the freezer because we were out of town. And so I was trying to decide what to have for dinner without going and getting takeout. And I had a can of chicken in my pantry that I ended up using to make chicken salad wraps. This was really easy, and I loaded veggies in it, and we were completely satisfied with the meal. And we had a little bit of the chicken salad mixture left over, which I put in a glass container with a metal lid, and we were able to eat that the next day for lunch also. We have 2 birthdays in the same week, and normally that means that we have 2 birthday celebrations, and it's really easy because everybody lives in one house. But now that kids are grown and flown, that means that we have to do a road trip to go celebrate a birthday with them. So we ended up packing some snacks and a hoagie sandwich, and we went over to Eastern Washington again just a few days after being there to celebrate a birthday. The birthday party, I didn't have to cook. I was really happy I didn't have to cook, but they ended up making a big crab fest with potatoes and corn and fresh crab, and it was delicious and easy, and it fed an entire crowd. All of these trips that we have been taking back and forth in our cars, we have been making sure to also take a load of stuff over with us. So we have a storage unit over in Eastern Washington, and we've been utilizing these trips back and forth to be able to pack up some of the things and start moving things over. So at this point, it has been almost 4 weeks since I went to the grocery store. And when we got back into town, I did make sure to spend about 15 minutes and I went through everything that was in my refrigerator, my freezer, my pantry, and even checked my spices. I wrote all of this out on a list. It took me about 15 minutes to get everything inventoried that I had in my house that I'm trying to use it. As I was working on this list, it was making me realize that I did not need to go to the grocery store. So I am trying to push that grocery shopping trip out to 6 weeks. So we will be officially moved and then I won't need to go to the grocery store until we are into our new house. And for those first few days in the new house, we are not going to have any appliances in it. The only thing that we're going to have is a chest freezer that we are bringing over to keep all of the meat still frozen, and I will have a cooler for the first few days to keep anything refrigerated that I need to keep cold. I did an entire video about stretching out that grocery shopping trip for 6 weeks and how I was able to meal plan around that, and we've already put that video up on the channel before this video goes up. This video actually ends up taking about 2 weeks of editing time before it goes up on the channel, but we make sure one of these meals videos go up every 2 weeks. But this is the last meals video that you are going to see filmed in this kitchen. The next one will be filmed in the new kitchen. While I was doing that inventory, I realized I had this chicken caprese dish that I had made in the meal 16 video. I pulled that out of the freezer and put it in the refrigerator to defrost so we could have it the next day. And then I just added some canned artichokes to that. That was also on my list of things that I wanted to use up. So I changed it up a little bit, but we still had this really fresh looking and tasting dish that was pulled out of our freezer. I hadn't made Poppyseed dressing in a while and we decided to make that for a video. So that video has already went up on the channel also, but that means we had a lot of Poppyseed dressing here. So we had that for a meal and then Mike was really excited to be able to have that later also. But I love spinach salad with fresh produce. We had some peaches and blackberries and blueberries that we had on our salad. Now those peaches were new. They came from our friend. And then we also picked some blackberries while we were at our grandma's house for the salad. But those blueberries that were on the salad were over 4 weeks old. I love with something as simple as seasonal produce and making fresh dressings that are different from your pantry, that you can mix up the things that you are serving for your family and it just gets them excited about eating produce again. And this is the third meal that we are having with that roast. Now it hasn't been sitting in my fridge for 2 weeks. I actually had taken the roast and sliced it up and put it in the freezer so I could pull it back out again. But we are having those hoagie rolls that I had found in the freezer. They did have a little bit of crystalled ice in the bag, so I made sure to shake those out before I started defrosting them. And we had French dip, and I was kind of laughing at that the package of au jus sauce, that's one of the only things that I buy in a package. It actually said that it expired in June of 2025, which 2 months for a package like that is totally fine past the best by date. But I have finally found one that is soy-free, and we will link that in our Amazon storefront if you're looking for a gluten-free, soy-free au jus sauce. This is another recipe that I had saw from a couple other content creators that I wanted to check out. This was a mango chili lime chicken drumstick recipe that I was using up some of those frozen mangoes that I had in the refrigerator. I honestly didn't love it, and this is not a recipe that I'm going to be sharing until at least I make it again and I can tweak the recipe until I love it. But I was excited to use up the last of those frozen mangoes and try something that was new, and Mike did love it. We spent the entire day packing. At this point, we are exactly 2 weeks away from our move date. And so we've been trying to pack up 90% of the things in the house that we don't need for the next couple weeks. So we are packing like crazy, and a friend ended up bringing over wood fire pizza for us, which I love that we were also supporting a local small business that's brand new here. So we had 2 different pizzas that we were able to try out, and ended up having some of those for leftovers also. I always end up calling this a garden pasta sauce. This was a bunch of tomatoes that I had frozen in the freezer. Whenever you're getting tomatoes in, especially during harvest time, I always wash them and core them and then put them in bags in the freezer. And then normally I'm making barbecue sauce and ketchup and different tomato products here in the fall time. But since we're moving, everything has just been going into the freezer right now that was coming in from the garden. I was able to use up a bag of those frozen tomatoes that I had in the freezer and some peppers and some zucchini, and I made a garden marinara sauce that was just things that I had on hand, and I let that simmer all day. Normally I let that simmer on the stove, but I totally forgot and packed my biggest pot. So I ended up using the saute in the Instapot, and I was able to cook it in there for a little while as it went from the frozen tomatoes into making sauce, and I just kind of stirred it every once in a while. And then after it was cooked down, then I just put it in the slow cook mode, which was really nice because it sat in the middle of my counter here and didn't get all over my tile backsplash. I did put some Italian sausage in the sauce that I let cook in the links all day long, so it was a really great way to use up the Italian sausage and those vegetables up to make a marinara sauce. And then I have put some of the sauce in wide mouth 1.5 pint jars that don't have any shoulders. They are straight up and down, and that way I can freeze the 2 jars that I have that is extra, and we can take it to the new house. And I almost forgot, I didn't use any Italian seasoning in this. I just went around my yard and picked all of the herbs that I had one last time in this garden before it's officially somebody else's. I wanted to make some marinara sauce, but we had rosemary, oregano, thyme, we had some parsley and basil all outside in my landscape. So a lot of the items are around the house in, our front flower bed, in a flower pot around the house. And that is how I've been able to keep herbs growing and not just in the garden. Planting herbs over in our new house is probably going to be one of the first things that I do. I was realizing that normally I just go outside and pick the rosemary and sage for like Thanksgiving turkey, and I never have to buy it. So I want to make sure that I'm thinking ahead right when we get moved in. And we wrapped this up at Labor Day weekend. We actually went to the Washington State Fair. It's the 125th anniversary of the fair this year, and I have went every single year since I was born. So it was really important that we got to do that. One of our kiddos came home because it's such a special memory for us to be able to go to the fair. And we'll see if we end up start making the 4-hour trek back home to go to the fair next year, or if we just do the smaller county fairs that are over there. I am filming this video on September 2nd. We officially move over to the new house exactly on September 12th. And then this video actually gets posted on September 15th. So in September, you are going to see a little bit of new house content mixed with the old house content, and just know that it's just the way that the videos get edited and put up in certain orders. But I hope you follow us in this entire journey to our new home. And make sure that you are checking out our zero waste produce guide. This has 75 produce items listed A to Z. This is linked in the description, and also our meal planners where I keep a track of all those meals that I share. This has 5 different covers, so you can pick the one that you like the best. You can find these in a bundle deal that also has a discount code, and all of the information is linked in the description to get this from our website. So make sure that you're checking out these 2 items to help you stick to your grocery budget.